The following are 5 tips to help you and your child cope following bushfires and prepare for bushfire seasons. Number 1, talking to your children. Talking to children about worries normalises the fact that we all worry and lets them know that it's normal to think that way. It's an opportunity to help them to learn to deal with worries and potentially prevent anxiety from impacting day-to-day life. Talk to your child about bushfire season and your bushfire plan. The amount of information on what you expose them to depends on their age and stage of development. For younger children, provide information about what will happen on extreme fire danger days, where you'll go, what you will take and why. For older adolescents, it's appropriate to provide more information about preparation and plans, and this may include plans for staying and defending any possible fires if that's part of your plan. Consider your adolescent's role in this and remember that even though they may be as physically strong as an adult, their emotional and cognitive development is much younger. It's important to consider your child's individual needs when thinking about including them in bushfire planning. When thinking about talking through plans and preparation, consider the time of the day you'll be having these conversations. Think about having a talk with your children well before bedtime, as talking about worries too close to bedtime may result in those worries spilling into the nighttime routine. This also gives them time to come back to you if they have questions or concerns before bedtime. Think about having a family routine where you and your children can sit down together and have a chat. Car trips are also opportunities to talk and often work well for adolescents as they don't feel too pressured and don't have to make eye contact. If your children come to you when you're busy, reschedule to a time when you can give them attention. Ask them what they want to chat about. This way they'll know that you're interested. Make sure you follow up at the time you reschedule too. Sit down with them and check that you understand their concern correctly. You don't have to have a solution to every problem. It's okay to acknowledge this, ask others for ideas and try an idea to see if it works and adjust it if it doesn't. Tip number 2, routine. Routine is extremely important for children and adolescents. When talking about routine, I'm not talking about having everything scheduled, but ensuring that there's predictability at certain times of the day. This makes things more certain and reassuring. The most obvious times of the day to have structure and predictability is in the morning and evening, especially as these times of the day can often be the most stressful with time constraints. Morning routines will include who will make breakfast and who will help with preparing for school, where school clothes and bags are kept, what time people need to be awake to get things done, and what time everyone needs to get out the door. When children and adolescents are stressed or anxious, this can become difficult as attention and concentration can be impacted. Understanding this and offering a bit more assistance at these times decreases the amount of frustration and upset that can occur. If your child needs you to help with their school shoes, even though they're capable of doing it themselves, it's completely fine if that means that everyone's out the door without becoming upset or frustrated. Don't sweat the small stuff. It's not useful for you or for them. Nighttime routine includes what happens in preparing for bed, who helps young children to bed, and what children do to calm their brains in preparation for bed. It's generally recommended that screens go off around 2 hours before bedtime, as screens stimulate the brain rather than calm it down in preparation for sleep. This is often tricky for families, but try to give your children as much time away from screens before bed as possible. Activities that can help children and adolescents to fall asleep include mindfulness, drawing or colouring, or reading. If you do change nighttime routines, you will need to understand that it will not work overnight. You need to give it a bit of time to make positive changes to sleep, so don't give up too quickly. Teens can find it harder to turn off screens compared to younger children. Try to establish rules about phones and screens early. Consider having a rule of no screens in bedrooms, as it makes it easier to monitor what they're looking at. It also means that you can monitor their exposure to news and social media about bushfire season as well. Family rituals are an extremely important part of routines. You may not be able to implement rituals every day, but having regular rituals like dinner together a few times a week are important and offer times for everyone to connect. There are also times to talk to the family together about anything that's important, so everyone feels included. Tip number 3, playing with your children. Play improves cognitive and emotional development. It helps with both gross and fine motor skills. It connects families and creates family bonds. During times of stress, it is even more important to ensure there's play with your children, as without play, the brain can hyper-focus on the stressful events. Create times in the day to play. This can be creative play, outdoor play, or things like crafting. Play needs to include some physical play as well as creative and calm play activities. Using structured games can be helpful if children are fighting over rules. Establishing rules and boundaries before play helps to keep things on track and avoid conflict. Children like to engage in rough play. If this can end in conflict with your children, make sure you're there to supervise and intervene before it can turn into misunderstandings and result in conflict. Always make comments around the fun experience of your family playing together. Tip number 4, reassurance. It's important to let your children know that they're safe. Children need comfort and reassurance and support. Ensure that you do this with your time and your behaviour. Reassurance occurs through listening to your children's experiences and thoughts, talking to your children about their experiences as well as your own experiences, and through physical touch like cuddles and hugs. When anxious, children will have questions and they should be encouraged to ask these questions. Having answers to questions will help them to understand the facts and not to fall into a situation where their brain imagines something far scarier than what is happening. If you can't answer the questions, admit this, and if you can, find the answer to their question. Try not to become frustrated when your child raises a concern. Offering reassurance in that moment can decrease the need for ongoing reassurance and provides a child with comfort. Don't be dismissive, as it can make a child feel like a nuisance and they will either have to seek the help they need with more extreme behaviours or they may withdraw. Monitor the amount of reassurance based on need rather than your own anxiety. We can worry a lot about our children, and this can lead to being on the lookout for problems and acting before something becomes a problem. The balance between ensuring you are open to talking with your child about worries and checking constantly to make sure that they're okay is important. Children need to know that they can deal with some things on their own, but also that they can approach adults for help if needed. Children may seek reassurance from teachers at school or other trusted adults. If you're worried about your child, touch base with the teacher. Let them know what you've spoken to your child about and how you would like them to respond. Encourage your child to speak with other trusted adults and ensure you have the opportunity to be part of these conversations as needed. Tip number 5, self-awareness. Be aware of what's happening for you as a parent. Be aware if you're being impacted by stress and act. Speak to people if you're worried about how you're doing. Your child will know when you're not coping well, and this may be something that worries them or frightens them. Being self-aware ensures that you're looking after yourself and being the best parent you can be. Being self-aware role models appropriate coping and self-care. Promoting good physical and mental health as a parent ensures that your children are more likely to have good physical and mental health themselves. Letting them know that you're okay and have help for yourself teaches them that it's okay for them to go and ask for help themselves. Monitor what you're talking about and what you're exposing your children to. Information about bushfires and disasters is extremely scary and confusing to children. They'll believe what they hear is the outcome for all rather than possibly the most extreme or upsetting event. If they're exposed to something that upsets them, explain that this is the exception rather than the rule. Rather than dismiss them when they've overheard an adult conversation, explain what they've heard in appropriate language, put some context around what they've heard, and ask them if they have any questions or worries about what has been said.